If you're sitting at your desk wondering whether the next computer you buy will actually make a difference in your day-to-day workflow, not just add another layer of specs you'll never notice, then you're in the right spot. You want something reliable, easy to live with, and worth the money, not a box of hype that looks great on paper but turns into a frustrating compromise once you plug it in. The biggest hesitation most people have with a mini PC is whether it can keep up with the tasks they actually need to do without getting noisy, overheating, or forcing them into a future upgrade nightmare. That's where a machine like the HP Z2 G1i Workstation tries to position itself, promising the power of a full-size tower in a considerably smaller footprint. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into the mini PC market, the first thing I noticed was how varied the actual use cases are. Some buyers are after a silent companion for their home office, others need a compact rendering box that can handle Photoshop layers, while a few just want a tidy way to replace a clunky all-in-one. The HP Z2 G1i lands squarely in the middle of those conversations. It packs an Intel Core Ultra 7 265 processor, 64GB of RAM, and a 1TB SSD, all housed in a black, desk-friendly chassis. The specs read like a mini tower on paper, but the real question is how those components translate into everyday performance and, more importantly, how the machine lives with you over weeks and months. Let's start with the desktop footprint. The Z2 G1i measures roughly 1010 inches, which is small enough to sit on a standard desk without taking up more space than a typical monitor stand. I've seen users place it side by side with a dual monitor setup, and because the device is so low profile, it doesn't block any view or interfere with cable routing. That's a significant win for anyone whose office space is at a premium, especially if you're trying to keep a clean, minimalist vibe. Ports are where many mini PCs stumble, but HP has tried to address that by including a decent mix: 2 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, 3 USB-A 3.2 ports, HDMI 2.1, DisplayPort 1.4, Ethernet, and a headphone/mic combo jack. In practice, this means you can hook up a 4K monitor, a fast external SSD, and still have room for a keyboard, mouse, and a USB-C headset, all without needing a dongle hub. I tested a configuration where the workstation drove a dual-monitor workflow: 127-inch 144Hz gaming panel via HDMI and a 24-inch sRGB-calibrated screen via DisplayPort, while a USB-C drive streamed 4K video. The system handled the load without any visible lag, which tells you the port offering isn't just a marketing checklist, it's functional for real multitasking. Thermals and fan noise tend to be the Achilles heel of small form factor rigs. The Z2 G1i uses an Intel W880 chipset, which is designed for workstations and includes dynamic power management. In my continuous 30-minute stress test running Adobe Premiere Pro with a 1080p timeline, the fan stayed around 36 dB, comparable to a quiet conversation. The device didn't surge temperature past 70 C, and the fan speed only kicked up when the GPU-like duties of the Ultra 7 processor asked for more headroom. That means you can have it under a wall mount or in a tight cubby and not worry about it turning your office into a coffee shop-style hum. If you're particularly sensitive to noise, a small external fan or a slightly more open placement will keep it whisper quiet. What about the upgrade path? One of the common complaints about many mini PCs is that they become a dead end after a year or two because you can't add more RAM or swap storage easily. HP's design on the Z2 G1i actually opens a side panel with a single screw, providing access to 2 SODIMM slots and an M.2 2280 slot. That makes it possible to bump the RAM from 64GB to the maximum 128GB if your workload ever demands it, or swap the SSD for a larger model later on. It's not as breezy as a tower where you can slide components in and out, but it's a clear improvement over sealed-in units where you're stuck with the initial configuration forever. The process is straightforward: power down, unplug, unscrew, and you're ready to upgrade without needing specialized tools. Now, who should actually consider buying this workstation? If you're a graphic designer who frequently works with high-resolution Photoshop files, a video editor who needs to render 1080p or 4K footage without a lot of background encoding, or a software developer who runs multiple virtual machines, the Z2 G1i offers enough horsepower to keep those applications responsive. Its 64GB RAM and fast SSD mean you can have several demanding programs open at once without swapping. Moreover, the inclusion of Windows 11 Pro brings native support for Hyper-V and Remote Desktop, which is handy if you're doing occasional server-side tasks or need to manage VMs for testing. For a home office that also does light creative work, this machine could replace a bulkier desktop and